Hi everybody, it's Russ again, and today we're going to round out the discussion of the big three in backpacking equipment. So, in this video, first I'm going to review my sleeping gear, which is a third of the big three, and I'm going to offer a cautionary tale. As you know, I emphasize weight a lot, and just going to give us an example of when it really didn't work out. And then I'm going to talk about the cost of the big three because, it's very expensive. And then we'll revisit the weight of the big three. As you recall, I had stated earlier that my big three weigh about 5 pounds, 9.5 ounces, which was well under the 8-pound limit that I kind of arbitrarily set. So my sleeping gear consists of a down-filled mummy-style sleeping bag. A mummy-style sleeping bag is one where you can get your head, it wraps around your head in order to keep the heat from escaping your body there. I have a sleeping pad, and I'll get into a lot of details about that. And I actually also bring a camp pillow and a pillowcase, which some people consider frivolous or a luxury item, but hey, it's what I bring. Total weight of these three items, or 4 items if you count the pillowcase separately, is 2 pounds, 5 ounces. So it is the heaviest of the big three. As you recall, my tent was under 2 pounds. My pack was under 2 pounds, and the sleeping gear is just a little over 2 pounds. Okay, so I actually have it here with me. I've got a Sea to Summit Spark SP2 is the model name. It's a nice down-filled sleeping bag. The down ratings go from anywhere from around 450 up to 900. The higher the number, the more expensive, but also the more effective the down is. This sleeping bag is rated down to 35 degrees Fahrenheit. Fair warning, everybody sleeps differently. What might be comfortable for one person at 35 degrees might not be for another. But when you're comparing 2 sleeping bags for your own comfort, the lower the number, the warmer it'll be. So the sleeping bag has a baffle design. It's kind of hard to see it, I think, here. You can actually see it on the camera. If this were hanging up, these would be horizontal baffles, and each one has its own allocation of the down in it. And what that does is that stops the down from all falling to one end of the sleeping bag. Basically, each baffle is kind of independent in that sense, and that's what makes this really an effective sleeping bag. It comes with a compression sack. Here's the compression sack. You can see how small this is. It's important to keep the amount of compression time, and by compression sack, this is what I put it in when I stuff it in my backpack and hike with it. You want to keep that time down as much as possible. Certainly when you're at home, when you're not out hiking, your sleeping bag should be stored in a nice roomy, airy sack. One that actually came with this particular sleeping bag is quite large, and it allows the down to stay fluffed up. Now, when I get into a camp that I'm going to stay at, the first thing I do, if weather's not a problem, is I put up a clothesline between 2 trees, and then I hang my sleeping bag on it just to give it time to fluff up and air out. If weather is a problem, then and I have to pitch a tent, if I'm not going to be in a shelter, then I pitch the tent. First thing I do after that is get my pack inside the tent, pull out the sleeping bag, pull it out of the compression sack so that again it can fluff up. Now you do have to keep this bag. This is a high-end bag. It's very expensive, and you do have to keep it clean and dry. Now, keeping it dry on the trail, do your best. Always take it out of its bag only when you're under cover of either a shelter or inside your tent. It's got to be hand washed. There's a special cleaner made for down. I hand washed this recently, and you've got to be very careful not to rip the baffles. So you've got to really wring it out before you pull it out of the tub or utility sink that you're cleaning it in. Rinse everything out, really squish it out good, put it in a bucket or something like that before bringing it up to the dryer. And I tumbled it down dry on low heat for almost 3 hours, and boy, it fluffed up beautifully. It had started to sleep a little cold for me, and when I held the baffles up to the light, I could see a lot of light coming through, which means that the down was squishing together, and the down wasn't fluffing nicely and filling those baffles the way it needed to. But once I cleaned it and dried it, it was like getting a whole new sleeping bag. So the next item I have is the sleeping pad, and sleeping pad provides insulation and comfort, and both are equally important. If you were to sleep on the ground with a sleeping bag, the ground will just like suck the heat out of your body, even through the sleeping bag. So it's important for warmth to have the sleeping pad. It's also important for comfort, and comfort is not really the luxury that you think it would be. It's important to be able to sleep well on a trail. Even with the best equipment, I've got to be out on the trail maybe 3 or 4 days before I start sleeping well. Just the change in environment, you're just getting your hiking legs back, which may take weeks. But very tired when you come into camp, and you would think you would sleep well, but you're in a strange environment. You're not in your own bed and everything, so it takes a while. The sleeping pad also protects you against rocks, roots, hard shelter floors, or tent platform floors. So I have the Thermarest NeoAir. It's a blow-up pad, and some hikers even hate that thing. It's like the last thing I want to do when I get into camp is blow up a pad. I'm like, come on, guys. I counted. It's like 50 breaths, So to me, it's no big deal to blow up the pad. As I mentioned in my On the Trail series, it does work best when it's only partially inflated. So what I do is I inflate it most of the way. I lay on it, get on my side, because that seems to be where it squishes the most down, and then I let out enough air until I'm comfortable with it. Okay, now I also have a pillow, a blow-up pillow. A lot of campers, they just take a stuff sack with their clothes in it and stuff something in their sweatshirt or whatever they happen to have with them into the stuff sack, and that becomes their pillow. A couple things with that. In my case, I do sweat a lot. A head sweater, as people would say. I don't want the pillow to get that dirty. It's much easier to just clean the pillowcase that I bring with. It's not an actual pillowcase. It's actually a stuff sack that I got out of a hiker's box down in Duncan in Pennsylvania. And a hiker's box is just a box where people leave equipment that other hikers might want to use, and I found this to be pretty useful. I use a Sea to Summit Aeros Pillow, ultralight large. It's another blow-up item, only takes a little bit to blow that up, and just like with the sleeping pad, you don't blow it up real tight, or if you do, you let a little air out until it's comfortable. And again, like I said, I use the stuff sack that I got from a hiker's box. So here's a cautionary tale though about sleeping pads. I once tried a sleeping pad. It was a specialty item. It was made by Climate. I forget I don't know how to pronounce the name of the company, but it was called an Inertia X Lite. I can't find it on their website anymore. You can find it through REI and other things like that. I only weighed 6 ounces, and you look at this, and here it is. It doesn't look like it'd be too comfortable, but the fact was, I slept on my back. It was extremely comfortable. But as I've mentioned before, I am also a side sleeper, and as soon as I put on my side, I may as well not have had it under me. It was pretty useless there. They also sold it as this lightweight thing, but then wanted to sell you a can of argon, a metal can of compressed argon, to fill it, which would increase its insulating properties. This was really made as a specialty item for winter campers, and a lot of people loved it, but it just turned out not to work for me. Now, it only weighed 6 ounces, but there's a point where I was going too light. That was just too much, too much weight to take off my total. Too much comfort to give up in order to try reducing the weight. I actually loaned. I actually had 2 of them, and I loaned one of them to Amber when we went camping out at the Mount Monadnock State Forest, and it deflated overnight, which made it even worse than useless for her. So Sorry, Amber, you had to sleep on the tent platform floor there. So the cost is actually kind of astounding. It's expensive equipment, and I would caution anybody and everybody against saying, "Oh, Russ uses this. I'm going to go out and buy these exact items," because in fact, I didn't buy them all at once. I accumulated them slowly. I made maybe one major purchase a year, and I tried other things in the meantime, and other things may be perfectly suitable for you. So when you look at the price, you see that the tent, $650 is the current price for the model that I have. It was cheaper when I bought it, but that's what it is now. The backpack is actually about a $350 item, so you're at $1,100 already. I think the backpack was probably a little under $300 when I bought it. Fortunately, these items are both in really good shape, despite the fact that I've probably gone, close to 1,000 miles with each of them. The sleeping bag is a $350 item, and if you're not going to be hiking and camping 3 seasons like I do, I go from late spring to early autumn. If you're just going to be in the summer, maybe you can get by with something a little less expensive there. And the sleeping pad, moderately expensive, and of course the pillow is just my little luxury item. You add all that up, and you're getting close to $2,000. And again, I wouldn't advise anybody to just run out and buy equipment like that. You've really got to test, you've got to evolve, you've got to grow into the equipment and acquire it over long periods of time so it doesn't hurt the wallet so much. I certainly I couldn't go out and spend that kind of money all at once for a hobby that I hadn't tested out yet. So it's perfectly possible to get suitable equipment for much less and still be under that 8 pounds. Like I said, you might evolve into this. Okay, so now we're going to take a short break here. I'm going to weigh the big three. So we're going to go down into my basement where I have a nice antique scale, but it works very well down to the nearest half ounce. That I'm gonna stuff the sleeping bag and my tent and the tent stakes and the sleeping pad and the pillow all into my backpack, and we're gonna weigh it. Okay, we've come down to the unfinished part of my basement where I have this antique scale. I have calibrated it. I did put 5 pounds worth of known weight on it, and it came out exactly 5 pounds, so I'm sure it's accurate, especially within the range that we're measuring. So I have my pack and the liner, the tent and its stakes in their respective stuff sacks, and of course my whole sleeping system, which actually has several stuff sacks. There's the compression stuff sack for the sleeping bag, there's the sleeping pad stuff sack, there is the pillow stuff sack, and of course the pad and the pillow and the sleeping bag, in addition to the pillowcase cloth stuff sack that I use. And we go up here, it's kind of hard to read. I had to actually take a Sharpie and darken some of those numbers, but you see we're under 6 pounds. We're actually at, by the looks of it, 5 pounds 13 ounces. So that's actually 3.5 ounces more than I had earlier stated. Earlier I had added up everything from a spreadsheet, and I think I must have left something out, probably the pillowcase that I use. So still in pretty good shape. We're well under that 8 pounds that I had suggested was maybe a good goal for people. The super light or ultra lighters always try getting under 5 pounds. For the reasons I stated earlier, I'm like, not really that interested in having to get it under 5 pounds. So there you have it, 5 pounds and 13 ounces.